I got tired of eating Big Mama's chicken. Ass business when I walk. I whip up the rent out the rent. I can't pay it, I'm sick. The office acting like some hoes. Tryna kick me out, they want me gone. Putting eviction on the door. I got niggas and they feelings. Well, you should've been a hoe. You's a hoe. Murder one, it won't get solved. Go make me wipe the nigga nose. OZ or some blow. I'm tryna whip it till it go. I got the game from my old head, but he ain't tell me about the snow. He only told me about the rain. He ain't tell me niggas cold. My partner tried to cross me out. For a ratchet ass hoe. That's a shame, my nigga. Yeah, I was down on my dick. I was so broke I couldn't fix. Nothing that hoe and shit, and niggas acting like bitches. It's been a long time coming, but I know to keep my guns, Where I come from, It's been a long time coming, but I know to keep my guns. Where I come from. I stood in the field with that 30 little nigga. My finger get you for the fed. Remember when niggas ain't like that? Then they treat me like a legend. They say I'm preaching like the red. A nigga sneak me, it get dead. I bring demons to his sex. The desert eagle leave them headless. I talk that shit that niggas wanna hear. I live a life of niggas in the field. I bought a chopper, keep it at the crib. Catch a nigga lacking off of me, get killed. How do I Mercedes for you, y'all the real? Bitches tryna rape me, wanna have my kid. Baby daddy hate me, say that he gon' tell that he jumped in that water, don't know how to swim. I'm still the same nigga used to be on that block. But it's been a little minute, they ain't seen him in the spot. Little bitty bitches tryna fuck on me now. No more hanging out the window when I pull up in this drop. No more noodles for the house, fettuccine in the trap. It was barbecue wing, now we eating at the time. Partner hating for no reason, he was sleeping on my couch. Fake love, I don't need it, you can keep it, that's a fact. Yeah, I was down on my dick. I was so broke I couldn't fix. Nothing that hoe and shit, and niggas acting like bitches. It's been a long time coming, but I know to keep my guns, Where I come from, It's been a long time coming, but I know to keep my guns, Where I come from, Never leave the house without my strap. I'ma keep that. Niggas talking flat behind my back. We gon' sweep that. Yeah. You gotta feel my pain. Yeah.
Now, y'all know we watched yesterday, and I was going over it. I think I went over some of Dan Calloway. Another one of these, but here go Trick Daddy right here.
OCO, beautiful people. I hope you all are doing well. I'm Dane Calloway, and I'm back with another episode today. Rapper Trick Daddy says he no longer wants the African American label. This drove some people to disagree with the statement, but thousands agreed with them and said his statement made them respect him even more. Should people be called African Americans if they have no lineage to Africa? Most of you already know what I'm about to do, right? Let's chat about it. Leave a like on this thing before we get to it. Let's get it.
OCO, freethinkers. You're now tuned into the realest history.
I've never been to Africa.
Labeled as African American. Miami, Florida, took to his social media to explain why he doesn't want to be labeled as African American.
I'm trying to figure out how Afro get in front of my motherfucking race. I ain't never been to Afro color. I never been to Africa. Afro or Africa. Never been there. I'm not from Africa. I'm born and raised in Goose, Florida. I'm born in Goose, raised in Liberty City in the Poker Bean Project. I ain't never went to Africa, ain't thinking about going there. And I heard it's a beautiful place. Yeah. And I know it's the motherland, yes. But not my mother, not her mother, and not her mother's mother. That ain't their land. American real true land is right here in the U.S. soils.
Many so-called Black Americans are speaking up year after year about this issue of being labeled something that they are not. Here's comedian Charleston White back in July of this year.
And we are not Africans. We are not African. Are you an African, baby? I'm not no African. Nigga, you a lying motherfucker. Nigga talking about we African. You African, nigga. I ain't African. I don't know nobody in my family from Africa. So you a lying motherfucker. I'm talking about we African. Nigga, you. And anybody else talking about we African. I ain't no motherfucking African. Nigga. So back to what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know where to go in Africa. Nigga talking about we African. Let me go to Africa. And I'm talking about, say, man, I'm an African. No, you ain't. He's from America. He's from America. Yeah, there ain't no mother African. Yeah, I'm Texas. I'm a Texan. A Texas nigga. I ain't no mother African. You can't make me African. Yeah, nigga, I don't look like no African. Yeah, African, black. And African got funny features. They don't look like us. Yeah, you don't see now nigga in Africa look like me. Come on, I'm up on Africa.
Now, we often have this discussion over at my main Dane Calloway channel here on YouTube, where I present publicly verifiable evidence that proves American history was taught to us all in reverse. I've been exposing their lies and presenting the truth to the public for a decade now. I share detailed explanations of their patterns of misinformation that I discovered as an expert in investigative research. One of the topics I expose for what it really is the term African American and how it was designed as an extreme political identifier deriving from the government and its house Negroes to separate the actual indigenous people of this landmass from their motherland, America. This is why you will hear people say that calling yourself African American is political correctness, which is defined as the conformity of prevailing liberal or radical opinion, in particular by carefully avoiding forms of expression or action that are perceived to exclude, marginalize, or insult groups of people who are socially disadvantaged or discriminated against. In other words, the term African American is their political way of being friendly to a group of people that they know have been systematically discriminated against. The issue with this African American term being called politically correct is that it does not reflect the true identity, culture, spirituality, or history of the group of people that they claim not to be marginalizing. That's not even remotely accurate. When they said that 12.5 million Africans were captured from some part of the west coast of Africa and then forcefully relocated to America and sold at auction blocks as slaves to employers looking for cheap laborers, it was a lie. The transatlantic slave trade, also known as the Middle Passage, did not happen as we were told. The anonymous writers of American history purposely leaves holes in the stories about this subject so that students and adults can make them make sense by using their imagination. My wife and I wrote a book about this called It Was Told in Reverse, The Untold Truth About the Transatlantic Slave Trade Story. That's available now on my website, DaneMakeYouThink.com. But wait, here, I'll tell you a little secret. Come here. They're afraid to tell you that they lost the wars with the indigenous people, who were the ancestors of the people they are misclassifying as African Americans today. Not to be confused with the Native Americans, those foreigners are a totally different group of people who came from another continent and were given the majority of our identity, history, and culture to cover up the truth for generations. This is why when you ask a so-called native about their family's history, they will begin in the late 1800s, which is when they got here to America, to replace the indigenous people by way of immigration.
It's Dane Calloway.
It's a battle over land, rights, and enforcing a court order.
It's been quite a journey.
The conflict centers around the Winnemucca Indian Colony. It's several acres on the south end of Winnemucca. In December, more than a dozen residents who live there were told they had to leave their homes where they've lived for decades.
Got my daughter's ashes spread there. So
Elena Loya lived in the house where her mother once lived. In fact, generations of her family have been there almost a half century.
my great-great-grandmother, Sally Cinnabar, she died on that colony. And her mother died actually in that house I live in.
The history of this land dates back to President Woodrow Wilson. He issued an executive order in 1916 allowing federal railroad land to be used for the Winnemucca Indian Colony. It was meant for homeless Paiute and Shoshone
Did what?
Native Americans. In the past few years, some of the people living on the land, like Jim Ayer, have been intertwined in a legal fight to stay there.
I lived there since 1980, and I'm at least 7 to 10 generations. I could trace my ancestry back to 1894.
Okay, you heard him say that he is at least 7 to 10 generations back, which is a lie. But then he also says that he could trace his ancestry back to 1894. Now, you may recall that slavery was allegedly abolished in 1863 or 1865, right?
Now, how far I done showed you back on the census? I showed a 17, I don't know if I showed that reconstructed 1790 census with my people on there on one side. I show you my grandmother, Delia Solomon. I show you Gabriel Solomon all the way down. Forgot, but then I'll show you the other side, the Black Isaac Newton. And what it do? Motherfucker got mad, come in here, called me a nigga. A nigga. He had the hard G-E-R. Nigger. I want to say this. Ain't nobody come out the motherfucking bushes and say shit to him. So why when somebody come up here and say nigger, I supposed to say something? And they talking to somebody else on my platform and they call somebody a nigger or nigga, whatever. With C's or with the G's. ER with the or the A.
Right? Even the anonymous writers of American history claim that the first so-called Africans arrived in America in 1619. Even though I proved that that story is incorrect for a reason. The year mentioned, 1619, predates the so-called Native Americans' 1894 year, right?
It's go
Now,
time,
suppose that doesn't make you see that the term African American disguises their true identity. In that case, you could detach yourself from that indoctrination over on my main Dane Calloway channel here on YouTube and be ready to be red-pilled. Then you'll understand why Donald Trump has been calling them out since 1993.
The other thing is, I'd like to know how many of these people are even Indians to begin with, because I've looked at them, and I have to tell you something, they don't look like Indians to me. And I've told a couple of them who came into my office, I said, I believe I have more Indian blood in my veins than you have, and I have none. And they laugh. They think it's a joke.
That's probably one of the only truths this man told is that he don't got no Indian blood in him. He don't claim to, but he tell a lot of other falsehoods. But at least he tell the truth about that.
I'm just here to make you think.
Slow down.
Sub up, light up.
I got a big update for you guys on.
I won't even talk about this. I'm not even showing nothing about him. This is a culture and vulture motherfucker right here. You don't know about our history or nothing, but you over here telling about everything that's happening over here. And I remember you coming down into my fucking chat. When I'm talking about MO3, you say you was gonna be here. Now you act like you don't want to get the fuck off my computer. But you keep staying on there. I'm gonna catch your ass. That's one thing, Jack. I don't know if you over in the UK or whatever. Where you at? You better stay there. So now I want to see it defaults to this. Defaults to Dan Calloway now. But it defaults to this one.
Just enough so that the Negro that occurred from
furthered their expertise in disagreements between politicians of the North, or rather the Union, and the politicians of the South, or rather the Confederate States, over the abolishment of slavery. However, the truth is that the Civil War was actually about integrating the free enterprise system with more of the indigenous aboriginals of the American lands, being as though many of our ancestors during this time period were not slaves, but rather indentured servants who were literally sharecroppers that owned farms, banks, and other institutions of business, which in turn allowed both.
They own what? Banks. So who banks I was showing you yesterday or the day before? Who banks was I showing you? And the name of the banks. Yeah. Where they was at? Georgia.
Both heads of the same snake to acknowledge the fact that our ancestors were rising up as capitalists within this industrialized society. In other words, the Union recognized that the so-called Negroes in the North and the South were rapidly prospering tremendously economically, and they wanted to go into business with them to further their expertise in the free enterprise system. But most politicians of the South disagreed with this notion, being as though it single-handedly threatened the longevity of their not-so-prosperous small to medium-sized businesses. So the Civil War began in April 1861 and completed in May of 1865. Before the Civil War ended, some very important key factors occurred within this timeline. For example,
see, that manipulative lie was told to you as a fear-mongering tactic in order to depict that one race of people are somehow superior to others. Free whites that immigrated to America from Africa and Europe during the early 1800s.
Which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor.
undergirded with what? Economic floor.
Which meant that it was willing.
So, you Negroes that's out there talking and got all these other people talking about us crazy, misrepresenting people like this man right here, his mom, all that. Don't nobody, if this nigga killed him, he right where he's supposed to be. See this snappy head nigga right here? Sitting at that table. If he killed him or he killed anybody from any tribe, he right where he's supposed to be sitting.
To undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor.
The Homestead Act of 1862 granted these white peasants, as King describes, our lands that were stripped.
Now, look at Dan Calloway picture. Look at their homes. And then look at the homes that I show you on Google Earth.
From our indigenous ancestors and all of the specialized benefits the federal government promised our ancestors by peace treaties that they would receive for being 90% of the help they needed in order for the United States to win. In all 61 documented wars that occurred during the 1800s alone. Side note, the Emancipation Proclamation abolished all forms of slavery the very next year in 1863. The so-called free Negroes and the so-called freed Negroes, along with the so-called freedmen, were royally upset and disgusted with the federal government. So they continued the multiple rebellions until they saw a change. The Homestead Act of 1866 was established by the government that allowed the Negro 40 acres and a mule. But the catch was that the Negro had to buy the land, and the price of the lands were lowered just enough so that the Negro cannot afford it still. This is what King meant by America refused to give the Negro any land. These Homestead Acts gave these foreigners government-funded assistance, where the government hired our ancestors to teach these foreigners how to farm.
Now, with government money to teach them how to farm.
Because keep in mind,
to teach them how to farm. So, what's stopping you from go getting a grant? Teach you how to farm instead of putting up these. But farm, that's the life you want to live. You want to eat. It depends on what you want to eat now. Where you want to eat. You want to eat at McDonald's or you want to eat something that you grew? My grandmother grew, I told you, gardens. She grew gardens in Philadelphia. And all the houses she bought, they grew gardens there. She didn't even care that I had allergies, so I had to get out there.
A true foreigner or immigrant wouldn't know how to grow anything in a mass area of land that they are not accustomed with or never inhabited before in their life. This is why King stated our farms.
They provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms in order that they could mechanize their farms.
Okay, so now, this timeline that I'm referring to begins with the Civil War in April 1861. Then, the first official Homestead Act of 1862. Then, the very next year, the Emancipation Proclamation Bill was implemented into law in 1863, in which that bill alone had absolutely nothing to do with freeing slaves from chains and shackles, like how history so loves to claim. No, in fact, the word emancipate derives from the Latin word emancipatus, which is the process of being set free from legal, social, or political restrictions, which has nothing to do with enslavement. In fact, the Latin word for civil is civilis, which means to affect fellow citizens in a legal or political sense. In other words, the stories of slavery in the Americas did not happen the way we were originally taught by authors of American history and world history. Because once an individual literally researches their family's genealogical background by records, instead of taking the word from some self-proclaimed scholars within their own communities with absolutely no publicly verifiable evidence to manifest, they will be met with the truth that these so-called slaves in America were actually prisoners of war, who were contracted as indigent servants by way of industrialism, which also means that your ancestors were sharecroppers, being as though they were the original landowners who were contracted by the tenants, or rather the white colonizationalists who immigrated to North America from Africa and Europe.
They were the what? The tenants. Now, I'm gonna stop it right there. You think I'm gonna let a mortgage company take some? I said, we're not losing no more our property. I'm going to get our property up. I'm going to get our property now. I'm gonna get our property down south. Or yeah, string me up.
In which these tenants were allowed to use the sharecroppers' land by contract or treaty in return for a share of the crops produced on the sharecroppers' very own land. But this deal went bad, obviously due to a particular group of people that had a totally different hidden agenda in mind. The next part of this timeline would be President Abraham Lincoln crafting the 40 acres and a mule Field Action 15 in Savannah, Georgia, for the so-called Negro sharecroppers during the months of January and February in the year of 1865, which should immediately indicate to you that the Lincoln administration was willing to work out multiple other economic deals with the complaining indigenous people of North America who were rebelling and raiding multiple territories.
You see anybody out there with some whips on? With whips? Look at all that land. You got 2 horses right there. You can see some people back there. You don't see no cops, nothing.
At this time, due to being betrayed and undervalued by both the local and federal
and somebody taking a picture.
Governments. So the very next month in March of 1865, Lincoln was sure to create federal banks for the so-called freedmen that fought on both sides of the American Civil War.
What that say?
Along with their descendants. These banks are known as the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Banks, or the Freedmen's Banks for short, in which over 72,000 accounts were opened, which led these banks to raise a staggering $52 million at that time. which is equivalent to over $100 billion right now, making it the largest grossing bank in American history at that time. Then, the very next month came, and President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated on April 15, 1865, which forced Frederick Douglass to take over the Freedmen's Banks, using tens of thousands of his own sharecropping money, which was a lot of money at that time due to him being a businessman of color, just like millions of our ancestors were. Then, in the year of 1875, after much demand economically, along with well-respected hard work continued to manifest by way of the indigenous aboriginals of this land, Congress passed the first ever civil rights bill in American history, allowing for the white immigrants to go into business with the indigenous businessmen and women of America. Our ancestors were prospering so well that a surge of newly established businesses and banks were rapidly changing the economy on a daily basis. And it also outnumbered the amount of banks owned and operated by whites. This time was uncommonly known as the beginning stages of the civil rights movement, to a point where businesses owned by people of color went from about 3,000 to nearly 60,000 businesses. And the people of color that owned banks went from about 35 banks to nearly 150 banks nationwide, from the years of 1875 all the way until the year of 1934, according to the FDIC and the Federal Reserve.
But who told the Federal Reserve? Is that the government? The Federal Reserve ain't the government. The Federal Reserve is not the Federal Reserve banks. It's not the government.
Now, so many important events occurred in the year of 1934 alone that I will have to save it for part 2 of this segment. However, I would like for you to know that people would love to claim that the place called Africa has the most resources ever in history, but it's to nearly 150 banks nationwide from the years of 1875 all the way until the year of 1934, according to the FDIC.
So, people can manifest whatever the hell they wanna. They said there was mortgage companies in my joint, and the U.S. United States Attorney didn't. Yeah, they ain't signed it. You just went and took that fast money. He went and took that fast money, took my plea. Yeah, you sentenced me to 95 months. On what? For what? That's why these banks struggling now.
And the Federal Reserve. Now, so many important events occurred in the year of 1934 alone that I will have to save it for part 2 of this segment. However, I would like for you to know that people would love to claim that the place called Africa has the most resources ever in history, But if that is the actual truth, then why do you consistently see real Africans immigrating to North America to work at a job or to open up their own business and collect resources from here in America, then publicly inform their friends, colleagues, and co-workers that they are doing this all in order to send it all back to their families who are residing in Africa, literally? See, the answer to that question is very simple. Because in today's society, the one set group of people who unknowingly accumulates all of the wealth upon this nation that keeps this country running in the first place, but would immediately spread its wealth to everyone under the sun other than themselves, which in turn attracts national and international businesses to their pockets alone, are in fact the so-called African Americans of this country today. Which in turn leads you to now know the truth about why multiple economic records would state every single year that so-called African Americans would make up around 1% of America's wealth overall, purposely telling you the story in reverse in order to hide the truth, making that the real reason why African Americans, or rather the indigenous aboriginals of Turtle Island, are the biggest threat to America's society, but they just don't know it yet. I'm just here to make you think.
So what I'm here to do, I ain't here. What I'm here to do, I'm here to lie to you. I don't know nothing. You gotta go back in time, just remember shit. You gotta go back in time.
Can't get no rest, don't know how I work all day. When will I learn? Memories get in the way. I walk around, I can't hear a sound, folks talking loud, but I don't see at all. I gotta get away, I don't know where.
He said, what he said? Folks talking loud. Was they in the military? That shit, you don't want that smoke. Like, this the internet. We on the internet.
To go, it's hopeless, so I guess I'll leave it alone.
Well, I spent all that day fixing up to go somewhere. Thought I was late and I found she wasn't there. I guess I'll find love, peace of mind some other time, but I still have today. I gotta get away, I don't
know where to go. It's hopeless, so I guess I'll leave it alone.
Games people play, night or day, they're just not matching what they should do. Keep me feeling blue. Been down too long, right, wrong, I just can't stop it. Spending all day, thinking just of you.
headed for the subway home.
Oh, I took my time,
'Cause I felt so all alone.
not far away.
I heard a funny sound, took a look around, and I
Could see her face.
smiled as she came, calling out my name. So I
know where to go. We'll take it slow. I guess I'll call it a day.
Games people play, night or day, they're just not matching what they should do. Keeps me feeling blue. Been down too long, right, wrong, I just can't stop it. Spending all day, thinking just of you.
What's that? The piano.
not far away. I heard a funny sound, took a look around, and I could see her face. Smile as she came, calling out my name, so I
know where to go. We'll take it slow. I guess I'll call it a day.
Games people play, night or day, they're just not matching what they should do. Keep me feeling blue. Been down too long, right, wrong, I just can't stop it. Spending all day, thinking just of you. Games people play, night or day, they're just not matching what they should do. Keep me feeling
Oh no. What should they do? By the way, this shit was right on time. Wow, perfect timing. Who snitched or Trap Boy Freddy?
For more exclusive content not featured here on my channel, like my books, films, and more, log on to my website at DaneMakeYouThink.com. Have you ever wondered why sports teams like the Cleveland Indians and the Washington Redskins changed their names and logos recently? Some Americans were taught that these terms were derogatory, but historically, they were not meant to be offensive. This is significant because these terms convey an essential hidden message that the government wanted to prevent newer generations of Americans from passing on. I will provide the answers to this question and more in this video. Let's get it. Between the 1500s and the 1700s, American Indians used the term redskin in a neutral sense to distinguish between different tribes based on their skin tones. While most individuals had dark brown complexions, red skin referred to those with a slightly lighter shade of brown. The word Oklahoma comes from the Algonquin phrase Oklahoma, which means red people or red-skinned people. While various indigenous groups used this term, it was explicitly associated with the Delaware people who lived in eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey.
Who told on? Trap Boy Frank. I'll show you. Trap Boy know who told on. Tell him he should tell the world who snitched on. Yeah, I caught a little rat in Jersey. They let him go. Tell him. Tell him your man that's snitched on. Yeah.
Southern New York State, and New York City. The term Oklahoma was mainly adopted into the Choctaw language in the early 1700s. Several decades before Oklahoma became the 46th state on November 16, 1907. Even up to this time, the term redskin was still not offensive. In 1869, America saw the emergence of professional football, which was a combination of rugby and soccer. The sports league was later called the National Football League, or the NFL, in 1919. During its earliest years, American Indians of dark brown complexions played pivotal roles in the success of multiple football teams within the league, like Charles Follis in 1902 with the Shelby Blues, and Charles Baker in 1906 with the Akron Indians, and Robert Ruby Marshall in 1919 with the Rock Island Independents, and Frederick Douglass Fritz Pollard, also with the Akron Indians in 1920, but then called Akron Pros later on. And he also was the first head coach of American Indian descent in the NFL from 1922 to 1937. I'll get into why here shortly. From 1902 to 1933, American Indians of dark brown complexions were dominating the NFL in passing, receiving, and rushing until it all came to an immediate halt in 1933 when so-called
1933, it all of a sudden came to a halt. That's when my grandma was born. See here, Pauline. My mom, that's my mom who raised me.
Colored men were banned from playing in the league. On July 5th, 1933, NFL's Boston Braves owner, George Marshall, announced in the Hartford Courant newspaper that his team would now be known as the Boston Redskins. Plenty of people would tell you that the owner changed the name of the team because the Redskins had an Indian head coach at that time. But the owner corrected them in the article by stating, quote, "So much confusion has been caused by a football team wearing the same name as the National League Baseball Club that a change appeared to be absolutely necessary. The fact that we have in our head coach, Lone Star Dietz, an Indian, together with several Indian players, as not as may be suspected."
Look, I mean, look at the John. Who the fuck is Lone Star Funding? Look.
Inspired me to select the name Redskins. That year, he moved the team to Fenway Park. Here's a picture of the Boston Redskins roster that was taken in 1934. Look closely at the photo and remember that the owner claimed that he had, quote, several Indian players on his
Look, with a black dog
roster. This is the new coach he just hired, William Henry Lone Star Dietz, a white man who claimed to be a member of the Sioux Nation, but later turned out to be not an American Indian whatsoever by his family members. I'll leave you to consider who the other Indian players he's referring to in this picture might be. While you look around the image, be sure to remember the logo that was on their jerseys in 1934. Here is the logo of that year from their official website. You can point out the noticeable differences here. But let's continue because we'll return to this later. 3 years later, the team owner George Marshall moved the Redskins to Washington, D.C., where they became known as the Washington Redskins and adopted a new logo in 1937. In 1946, American Indians with dark brown complexions were welcomed back into the NFL. At that time, they were referred to as colored, Negro, and black, but they managed to overcome the pervasive racism that existed.
Blacks overcoming adversity, not Bank of America. November the 8th. The BOA group. Yeah, I don't know when other people wake up or when they kids wake up, but I can't tell nobody nothing. I showed you the paperwork and then the revival when I got out of prison, where I shouldn't have been there in the first place that long, but I ain't tripping. I learned that's where I learned that. The law. Now, when I say it wasn't me, and what call of mine anybody used against anybody that got indicted? Your name appear on some paperwork. My name appear on somebody's paperwork. Yeah, me, myself, and I. I must be schizophrenic or something. I don't know. They said I'm bipolar. It's a disorder. Yeah, doctor. Yeah, so he give me this stuff. It's called weed. Legally. To smoke. Yeah, ain't my doctor either.
While successfully dominating all records across the NFL during that era. At that time, the term redskin was not considered offensive. Additionally, English language dictionaries widely used in the 1950s and 1960s made no mention of the term redskin being viewed as disparaging to American Indians. For example, the 1952 edition of the Universal Dictionary of the English Language described redskin as a Native American Indian, a red man, but does not refer to the word being offensive. The American College Dictionary of 1956, the Grosset-Webster Dictionary of 1957, and Webster's New International Dictionary, an abridged second edition of 1957, all define redskin as a North American Indian, again, with no indication that the term was considered offensive. In the American Heritage Dictionary of the American Language of 1969, produced more than a decade later, the exact definition is given, but with the qualification that the term is informal, which may be a recognition that redskin was phasing out of everyday usage by the end of the 1960s. In 1958, the Crayola Company introduced 15 new colors to its 64 crayon collection, one of which was Indian red. This crayon was said to represent the skin complexion of American Indians, and parents used it as a conversation starter with their children to discuss American Indian culture. It was not until the 1983 editions of Webster's Third International Dictionary, 9th edition, that the Merriam-Webster Company, the country's leading publisher of so-called serious dictionaries, added the cautionary phrase, quote, usually taken to be offensive, to its previous definition of redskin, which was simply a North American Indian. In contrast, the same dictionaries from the 1950s and 1960s indicate that the word nigger is understood to be clearly offensive and derogatory. And even during the Jim Crow era, calling someone black to their face was considered insulting. Until 1970, it mysteriously became acceptable to use. But there was a consensus that the term redskin was merely a synonym for North American Indian and was not regarded as an offensive label. So
So you heard it. I'll show you Tanny Robinson. Yeah. He told on somebody? Nah, not my Uncle Tanny. Or Tanny Newton, none of them. Ray told him Newton, Oliver, Robinson. No family. Ain't telling on no family. Let me say again. We ain't telling on no family. We don't know nothing. Yeah. You don't know what that shit leads to. So you just better. Yeah, when I got up today, it was gone. Everybody's gone. Yeah, from outside.
So, what led to the shift in the perception of the word redskin? Why did it become considered offensive in the early 1980s when it wasn't viewed that way before? Even though the ban was lifted in 1946, the Washington Redskins were the last team to reintegrate. They purposely did not draft or trade for an American Indian player with a dark brown complexion until it was forced to do so politically by then President John F. Kennedy, being as though Washington, D.C. was majority populated by so-called colored people at this time in 1961. The civil rights movement was picking up steam, so activists, politicians, sports journalists, and even Kennedy's Interior Secretary pressed owner George Marshall to change his ways, or he would not be able to use the new DC Stadium, later called Robert F. Kennedy Stadium, for his Washington Redskins NFL team. In 1962, team owner George Marshall made a significant decision when the Redskins selected Syracuse running back Ernie Davis as the.
So, why they don't say nothing about this boy with this long? This look at his nose and look at that team owner nose. Look at everybody else that's behind this one man, and look, so he got a patch on his head. What happened? What happened to why you got a patch right there? Come on. And why he by himself with y'all?
First pick in the draft. Although Davis was later traded, the Redskins went on to sign 5 American Indian players, including future Hall of Famer Bobby Mitchell. Bobby stated to reporters that he personally never had any problems with George Marshall, but he did encounter considerable hostility from fans, particularly among the so-called black community.
We would come to Washington and beat them up, and only because they had no blacks, so we played even harder.
Today at age 77, Bobby Mitchell is retired from the Redskins front office, a former superstar receiver with more than 14,000 combined yards in the air and ground.
Did you want to come here?
No. It never crossed my mind I'd ever be a Redskin.
He got his start after the University of Illinois for the Cleveland Browns. He was in the backfield with Jim Brown.
When I finally came here, it never dawned on me, and I don't know why. Washington is in the South.
He continued at a Pro Bowl pace once he was traded to D.C., but when off the field, it's no exaggeration to say that Bobby Mitchell caught hell in a segregated Washington, D.C.
I couldn't go in restaurants. Barbershops, the same thing you'd get across the Mason-Dixon line.
He played for about 10 years in the NFL. There were 4 Pro Bowls.
So you couldn't get across the Mason-Dixon line. And I'm telling you, I'm not playing about my daughter, or you ain't coming from New York. I'm telling you, I'm not playing about my daughters.
Twice he led the league in receiving. And how about those 83 touchdowns?
And Bruce, you have to remember one other thing. I don't know if people ever even think about it. Bobby Mitchell wasn't loved by the black folks. We wasn't their class. So there was a lot of things my kids couldn't do and my wife couldn't do.
The bourgeoisie.
The bourgeoisie type. So I got that going against me, and I got the whites saying, I don't like you, and the names.
In 1983, Bobby Mitchell was voted into the NFL Hall of Fame. He got more than 70% of the vote on the very first ballot.
Would it have been okay for you to just be an average player, role model, or did you have to be great?
You know what? The guys who should have gotten that question from you were the other black guys who came in with me. Because have you heard anything about them? It would be interesting to see what was happening to them at the same time. I never heard a complaint. And every day I'm getting kicked. Every day, wherever I went.
And you were a star player.
And because I still think it was because I was the star player.
The discussion about the Washington Redskins name being offensive to some people gained public attention in the early 1990s. In 1992, after the Redskins reached the Super Bowl, some activists staged protests against the team's name. The then owner, Jack Ken Cook, stated, quote, "The name Redskins would not be changed. To me, the name represents pride, courage, adventure, daring do, and bravery." In 2020, following the George Floyd protests, various aspects of society that were deemed offensive were closely scrutinized, largely due to the heightened attention from social media and the Black Lives Matter movement. As a result, the name and logo of the Washington Redskins faced considerable backlash and were ultimately removed. The team temporarily adopted the name Washington Football Team until a new name could be established. Additionally, the team's owner, Dan Snyder, was already facing criticism for fostering a negative workplace environment and for multiple allegations of sexual. misconduct. The team was eventually called the Washington Commanders. Millions of fans of the team and the NFL were unhappy with the name change and expressed their opinions on the matter. This included me and several politicians urging the government to intervene and reinstate the name. It was noted that the Washington Redskins had received the blessing of American Indians, both in the past and currently, to use the name and logo. On November 13, 2024, Senator Steve Daines of Montana criticized the NFL for its blatant censorship and urged the return of Washington's previous logo. Here's the video.
Madam President, I rise today to talk about the need to right a wrong. The National Football League and the Washington Commanders must do more to honor the Commanders' Native American heritage, as powerfully symbolized by the team's former iconic logo. And they must commit to never, ever again censor it or degrade it. Here's the story. This is a photograph from the 1960s of Blackie Wetzel and Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Blackie Wetzel was a member of the Blackfeet Nation in Montana and served his people and the country in many roles throughout his life, including chairman of the Blackfeet tribe and president of the National Congress of American Indians. In 1971, Blackie met with George Herbert Allen, who was then the head coach and the general manager of Washington's premier professional.
This is November 13th, 2024.
Sports franchise, the Washington Redskins. Knowing that Coach Allen admired and supported Native Americans, Blackie Wetzel encouraged him to replace the team's R logo with something that represented Indian country. Blackie brought Coach Allen pictures of prominent Native American figures, including Blackfeet Chief Two Guns White Calf, who is pictured here on this poster board beside me. On behalf of the team, Coach Allen adopted the now legendary logo that became the symbol of this storied franchise and among one of the most popular in league history.
When I see you,
Make no mistake, this logo was inspired, it was envisioned by Blackie Wetzel as a tribute to Native Americans. By the way, it's not a caricature. It is a depiction of pride and of strength, a depiction of courage, of honor. In fact, as Blackie Wetzel said in 2002, it made us all so proud to have an Indian on a big-time team. And I will tell you, support from the Wetzel family, the White Calf family, and the Blackfeet Nation remains as strong as ever today. In fact, the Blackfeet Nation recently expressed their, and I quote, wholehearted support for the logo and urged the NFL and the Commanders.
what's her name? Blackie Wetzel. What is it? Wetzel.